A mentor of mine said this to me many years ago, and I want this to sink in for a moment for you. She said, Alita, you will never go where God is calling you to go if you don't find complete forgiveness in your heart. The plans God has for you, you must find complete forgiveness in your life if you want to be released to do God's perfect will for your life. And wow, did it rock my world. She told me this many years ago, and it was as if it was yesterday because it was such a powerful, pivotal, transformational time of my life. And I had gone on in unforgiveness for many years of my life at that time. I had held on to it for way too long. I had held on to unforgiveness for way too long. And my heart right now is for you to not have to do that. I held on to it way too long because I just didn't understand the power of forgiveness and how it would completely and radically change my life. My hope is that through this episode today that you can hear my story and recognize yourself in it. Ask yourself where maybe you have some unforgiveness in your life. And as you hear my story, my hope is that you can find complete forgiveness and that I can equip you in the upcoming episodes to know exactly how to do that. If this is a topic that speaks to you, could I just ask you to do something? Maybe you have one friend, just one friend that you think of as you're listening to this. Maybe you already have thought of this friend. Wow, she really needs to hear this. She's going through something and needs to find forgiveness. Could you share this with her? I just think it's so powerful to not keep truth from others hearing this. We want to encourage others. And I would just love it if you could share this episode with her. I just feel like God speaks oftentimes just a simple word shared with someone else at the exact right moment can be transformational for somebody. I'd love for you to share that with whoever you're thinking of right now when we are talking about finding freedom through forgiveness. And while we're at it, could you subscribe to this channel? I would love it if you would do that so that when I have upcoming episodes, you know when they are available. This episode, I'm talking about my story, and in upcoming episodes, my hope is that I can equip you so that you know how to find complete forgiveness in your life. And if you'd like to keep walking this journey with me so that you know when upcoming episodes are happening, go ahead and hit subscribe. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Maybe you just hit like, whatever that is for you. One of the things that I'm really committed to doing is responding back to you in the comments. So as we go through this episode, if there's something that touches you or you think about, or maybe you have unforgiveness and you want me to be praying for you, something that just you feel like would be an encouragement to others as well. I think finding some community in having conversations around this, I would love for you to comment anything that just speaks to your heart so that we in community can become more and more united in Christ around this topic. And I'd love to support you in any way I can through those comments. In the first episode of this series, I talked a lot about what forgiveness is, what forgiveness isn't. If you haven't watched that episode, you could go back and listen to that. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about my story, my personal story. And then in the next two episodes, it's going to be about forgiving others and forgiving yourself. I think that's one of the things for me that I've had to really understand is so often it's talked about forgiving others. And for me, a lot of my story is forgiving myself. I punished myself quite literally. I remember thinking to myself, I'm going to punish myself. I'm going to hold on to this for like 10 years. And then I think I'll be able to forgive myself. And I did. I look back on that. I'm like, wow, I didn't have to do that. And my hope and prayer for you is that by listening to this episode and this whole series, that you can find a way to find complete forgiveness in your life for others and for yourself. You don't have to hold on to that. You can find freedom from that. Before I jump into my story, one of the things I do want to just comment on is typically I have a guide for every episode. This episode, I don't have a guide because it's so story driven. Typically, an episode will have a guide where I ask you a lot of coaching questions so that you can reflect. And at the end of this episode, I do just have 2 very simple questions for you. But for right now, I'd love for you to just listen to my story and just allow the Lord to speak to you in whatever way He has for you right now. Like I said, I had a spiritual mentor, and this was many years ago. I sat in her office, and she had a couch, and her and I were praying, and I thought, oh, this is going to be really good, really powerful. I was so excited to hear her pray over me. And as we were sitting there praying, all of a sudden she said, Alita, do you have unforgiveness in your life? And I did not want to open my eyes because I'm thinking, I do not want this woman who, in a way, I'm like trying to impress, I shouldn't have been, but that's kind of how I looked at it back then. This was many years ago. And I thought, oh, I don't want to open my eyes because she's going to ask me about this unforgiveness. And she said, Alita, do you have unforgiveness in your heart? And I opened my eyes and she's like, let's just stop praying for a moment here and let's talk about this. And when she asked me the question, I was like, what? Who? Me? I didn't want to admit that I had unforgiveness in my life, but I did. As we started to unpack my unforgiveness, I didn't really know what to say to her because I didn't really know how to navigate it. But what was so powerful was that I had someone there with me to unpack it. And I knew that she loved me. I knew that she cared about me. I knew that she could direct me in the right way to help me with my unforgiveness. I had someone walking through it with me. And that was just really meaningful and powerful for me. I hope that I can be that person for you in this moment. And that's why I would love for you to share in the comments where you have found forgiveness, where you may have not found forgiveness. Let's do this together. Let's find the freedom together. I think for me with her, it was like this peeling back of helping me understand. It was this process. It was timing. And she told me, like I said earlier, she told me if I were to do what the Lord was calling me to do, that I had to find forgiveness in my life. And it was like, okay, I am going to do this out of obedience to the Lord. I want to do this. I want to forgive, but it was not easy. I wanted to be obedient. It wasn't easy. It was a choice. God's not going to force you to forgive. It is our own free will if we want to forgive or not. I just know for me, once I did it, it was transformational for me. It rocked my world. Everything was different. Everything changed when I did this. And she told me, she said, your ministry is going to come out of this part of your life. This struggle in your life, the thing that you're overcoming right now, is going to be a part of your ministry. And of course, here I am sitting here telling you right now my story of forgiveness. She was right all those years ago. So as I left, that one of the things that I struggled with, and I told her this, I said, one of the things that I struggle with is that because I feel that he keeps stabbing me, I mean, that's what it felt like. And maybe that's not the right word or the right way to describe it, but that's the way it felt to me. And I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but because he kept stabbing me, it just felt like I didn't want to forgive him because it had been my armor, my way of how I felt like I was protecting myself, which wasn't true, but that's what I felt. And that's why I kept this unforgiveness, because it was a way to defend myself. I had unforgiveness, and so there was this armor. And the thing that I think I had to realize was it wasn't just him, it was me. For myself, like I said earlier, I had been punishing myself and I had unforgiveness toward myself. And in the next episode, I'll really be talking about forgiving myself because it was huge for me. Many years of unforgiveness toward myself, punishing myself, holding on to shame, guilt, It was crazy. And I think because I kept this unforgiveness, it felt like I was protecting myself and at the same time punishing myself through this process. And I told her that, and she said, okay, go home and process through this and think through this. And, when the time is right, you need to go ask for forgiveness from him. And I literally just anxiety, overwhelm, the most nervous I've ever been in my life, probably the most nervous I've ever been, thinking that I had to go ask him for forgiveness. And so I went home after I left her, and I spent the next few months getting it right in my relationship with the Lord, getting it right in my head. I really wanted to go and ask for forgiveness in a posture of my heart that I had settled it with the Lord first. Not just go and be like, okay, well, I know I'm supposed to do this, and so I'm just going to go ask for forgiveness, get it over with. Instead, I allowed that process to happen, and I spent a lot of time with the Lord. Sorry. It was just really hard because I knew that the Lord had forgiven me. That part wasn't hard for me. I knew that I was supposed to forgive him. I knew I was supposed to forgive myself. But it was this process of, how do I actually live this out? A lot of times we know things in our head, but how do we live it out? Like in our heart, we want to look through this lens, and we want to be obedient to the Lord. And how do we find complete forgiveness and live with a posture of our heart that it's like, okay, I'm being obedient to the Lord, yes, and I can look through a different lens. So I looked through this different lens for a while. I processed through, and you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. My guess would be that you have processed through forgiveness, or maybe you're in the middle of unforgiveness and you're like, okay, that is what I need to do, and if that's you, just put in the comments, where are you at in this process? I'd love to just pray with you and know where you are. I'll respond to you in the comments. Let me know where you're at in this. So I went home, processed through this for a couple months. I wanted to get my heart posture right. And then finally, I went to him, and there's a lot of details that I'll leave out of this because it doesn't really matter. I went to him and I asked for forgiveness. And it was literally a 2-minute conversation, and it was really hard. And looking back, it's like, why was that so hard? But at the time, and I'm sure you can identify with this, at the time, it was really difficult. I don't know how else to describe it to you, but I wanted to do it out of obedience. I wanted to do it because I wanted him to know that I was getting right with the Lord. I wanted him to be able to move forward in his life if he hadn't. I don't know the for sure details on his end. We've never had any conversations since the time that I went and asked for forgiveness. But something changed in me at that moment. What the Lord did was really beautiful. Once I went to him and asked for forgiveness, my remembrance of him started changing. Over time, and this did take time, but over time, I went from hating him, loathing him, to being able to remember things about the time that we did have together in a positive way, finding the good things again. We didn't go back to a reconciliation of the previous state of our relationship. That's not what I'm talking about at all, because if that's something that you're dealing with, the reconciliation of relationship through forgiveness, go back to my last episode and listen to that part of it. That is not what I'm talking about. We did not reconcile to the way we had a relationship before, but we reconciled to a level that I could be okay with. And it was beautiful how the Lord started bringing not ideas, but thoughts to my mind, remembrances to my mind of how there were good parts of our relationship. There were positive things. And it was beautiful for me. Like I needed that. That was so healing for me to see the positive of those years. And I wasn't able to see those things with the unforgiveness. And I think for me, I get emotional about it because I want that for you. Nobody needs to sit in unforgiveness for all those years. You can find freedom now. Like right now, in this moment, you have a choice and you can find freedom through forgiveness. You can make the choice. Allow the Lord to heal you and be able to look back on things in a different way. What's been really beautiful is because I found forgiveness for him. And let me just remind you, part of it was forgiving myself. I'll talk about that more in the next episode. But part of being able to forgive him was so healing. What I found myself doing was I found myself praying for him and his family and his home. I probably pray for him like one of my top people that I pray for regularly now. And it's just so beautiful how the Lord has just spurred my heart to pray for him and his family. And just recently, I'll just tell you this, just recently, I actually had a vision of this angel with just one of his wings. This angel was so huge that just with one of his wings, he was protecting him and his family and his entire home. And I just thought it's so beautiful how the Lord has healed me. And through forgiveness, I can see how the Lord continues to work and protect him and his family. I remember when I was talking with my mentor, one of the things that really stuck out to me, she said, Alita, he is a child of God just like you are. He is loved by God just as much as God loves you. There is no difference. And if the Lord can forgive me, he can forgive him. And I just thought, how beautiful is that? What I would encourage you to do is go to Psalm 139, 23 and 24. I'm going to read it to you. It says, search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. Point out anything in me that offends you and lead me along the path of everlasting life. When you read that scripture, I just want you to ask the Lord, is there some unforgiveness in my heart that I need to address? Maybe you need to forgive God. Maybe you need to ask God for forgiveness. Maybe you need to forgive yourself. Maybe you need to forgive others, whatever that is for you. I'm telling you, God's perfect will for your life includes complete forgiveness. The last major thing I want to talk about is that I had a choice. I had a choice to be bitter or better. My choice. We do have a choice how we handle this. I had a choice of being bitter or better. It's like me drinking the poison and expecting the other person to die. You can choose to be bitter or better. And one of the things that I think with forgiveness, it's peeling back this scales. Like I think the unforgiveness places the scales over our eyes. And then when we choose forgiveness, the being better, the scales start to come back off. And I think that's part of the reason I can remember good parts of the relationship. I have this remembrance of positive things. We have the opportunity to have those scales come off, see the good stuff, and be able to just breathe again because we're not holding on to it anymore. As we close our time together, I always want you to go spend time with the Lord. And I just have 2 questions for you. Where might you have unforgiveness in your heart? And are you ready to go find true freedom by letting go of that unforgiveness in your heart? And then I would just encourage you to subscribe and get that notification so you know when the next episode airs. And let's walk through it together. Let's forgive ourselves, let's forgive others, and find true freedom together. I want to be here for you in the same way that that spiritual mentor was there for me. Let me help you, and let's walk through this together. The one thing I'll just close with is my mistake was that I just held on to it for so long, and you don't have to do that. You can find true freedom right here, right now, in finding complete forgiveness.